Hello everybody and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about Azure Arc and Defender for Server. But first, my name is Mark Connolly and I am a cybersecurity architect for Empyrean. We help businesses in the Midwest and all over the world with their Microsoft 365 and cybersecurity needs. What's going on, everybody? So let's get started today. Defender for Server is a little bit different than Defender for Endpoint. The licensing model, the way that it bills, the features involved in it, it's a little bit different than Defender for Endpoint. But at the end of the day, we also want all of the signals, AV, the policies and everything from Defender for Server to integrate over into our Defender portal. So in order to do that, we actually need to deploy Azure Arc, and then we also need to deploy Defender for Endpoint separately. You may see some stuff about a new unified client, and that is an option to just deploy via one client. The problem with that is that if you have Defender for Server P2, it doesn't incorporate all the features, simply because the Arc agent needs to be able to deploy this log streaming extension in order to do file integrity monitoring, change control, stuff like that. So if we go over here to portal.azure.com, I'm actually in the Arc blade right now, and we can see that I've already installed this on our file server. So Arc gives you a lot of different tools that you can do. You can connect directly to the machine. You can use the Windows Admin Center. You can deploy extensions straight from this blade. You can set up machine configuration, auto management. You can check your inventory and your change control. And this is basically just a representation of your server inside of your Azure subscription. So as part of being a representation of your server inside of your Azure subscription, you do need to pick which subscription it's going to go under. As we talked about before with management groups, but making sure it's under the right management group so that you can set up permissions properly is important. You're also going to need to put it in a resource group. So there's two big ways to go about this, and that is, if you've got 5,000 servers, maybe you just create one big resource group for your Azure Arc servers. The other option is going to be to deploy it in individual resource groups that's based on your application and your system. If you want to be able to delegate access to resources, if you want your sysadmins to be able to go to their servers that they manage and use the connect features and be able to look at the change tracking, look at the logs and things like that, you're going to want to do a little bit more of a distributed build out. But that said, doing it all in one big giant resource group is an option too. So this file server, if we go over to the subscription, that is an Empyrean specific resource. And as such, it's in the Empyrean subscription. And we have created a file services resource group because we have the Azure Arc object in here, and then we're also going to be standing up Azure Files to, once we get network connectivity, to do a local SMB share as well. So that's in the file services resource group, so we're kind of logically delineating the application, right? So whoever manages the file servers, we can give them permissions on this resource group, and they can do their day-to-day they can do the day-to-day tasks that they need to actually manage this stuff. But let's get started, because I also have a domain controller that I want to onboard for Defender for Server. So let's navigate back up to our subscriptions. For the domain controller, it is going to be in the identity cybersecurity subscription. And you can kind of see the idea of what we're doing here. So like, this is the identity security resource group. It's got managed identities. I'm also going to stand up the VM for Active Directory in this resource group. And then it's going to have the Azure Arc object for the on-premise Active Directory. So we're keeping all of the identity services in one resource group, and anybody that we need to give permissions to the various different identity resources, we can do that by giving them permissions at the resource group level. So in here, we're in our resource group. We're going to create a resource, and let's do Azure Arc. There we go. Servers, Azure Arc. And we're going to add a single server. If you're doing large scale deployments, you're going to want to try some of the other options. So we're in cybersecurity. We're going to put this in the identity security resource group. This one is in the central US. And we are not going to enable auto manage, definitely not for a domain controller. And it's going to give us this script, right? So we can copy this script and go over to our server. Run PowerShell as an administrator. I'm just going to paste this in here. Now that I think about it, the web browser is probably going to give me an issue for signing in. I think I've installed Edge on this one yet. Oh, hey, maybe I did. All right, so now we're going to authenticate on our Azure account, not the local one, that's important to know. All right, so the authentication is completed. Now it's creating a resource group in Azure for us. All right, there we go. So it finished running. Now we see our domain controller in here. It has an Azure Arc object. If we go over here to Defender for Endpoint though, and go to our device list, what we won't see in here is we won't see that device in Defender for Endpoint. So the file server is in here, but the domain controller is not. So what we need to do next is actually go down here to Settings. We're going to go to Endpoints. We're going to go to Onboarding. And this one is a 2019 server. So again, like the other one, there's several different ways to deploy this. For the lab's sake and just being easy, I'm just going to do the local script. If you're doing larger scale deployments though, check out one of these other options. And we just download the onboarding package. Now we're going to run this one as an administrator. And it's going to do this Microsoft Magic, and it's going to onboard the Defender for Endpoint. Successful. Now we can go over here to our endpoint portal and check out our devices and see if it's reporting yet. Yeah, not quite yet. Give that a few minutes, we'll check back on it. All right, so a few minutes go by and IMP DC-MHT-001 is now reporting to the Defender for Endpoint console. It's going to take a little bit for the vulnerabilities and all of the analytics to pop up in here, but at least we have an object in here now. See, no alerts, no logged users. So it's going to take a little bit. But while we're in here, I'm going to go ahead and flag the device value for this to high since it's a domain controller. And we'll go ahead and let it sit in the background and catch up. All right, so if you've been paying attention to our lab build out, we've got most of what we have here actually built right now. So we've got the hypervisor. It's running Bitdefender. We just got done putting Defender for Endpoint on the domain controller. We've got Defender for Identity installed on the domain controller. We got a desktop that has Bitdefender and it has Defender for Endpoint in passive mode. And then we also have a laptop sitting over here that is on DHCP that's also on that network. So now that we've got the on-premise components configured, we can see in our Defender portal, we've got all the devices reporting. Now all of the sensors and the different things are going to start lighting up for us. So I hope that this has been informative for you and you kind of understand how to deploy Azure Arc and Defender for Server now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.